This is the user guide for CheckIron version 2, which allows users to upload their raw DNA data from commercial suppliers such as Ancestry or 23andMe and inform them of their risks of getting iron overload. Iron overload is too much iron in the organs, and it is often caused by the most common genetic disease, which is called hemochromatosis, which is what I have. Iron overload is treatable, but if it's not treated, it could actually kill you. Our mission is to bring knowledge to people and their relatives so that they are treated before any organ damage and so that they do not get ill or die earlier than they should. So what is iron overload? Iron is essential for life, as we all know, and this is the spectrum of iron concentrations in the body. We've all heard of iron deficient anemia because it's quite common worldwide. In the US, iron deficient anemia affects 12% of mostly young women and 2% of young men, and it makes people feel tired, lack of energy, but is rarely more serious than that. What is never discussed is the fact that there are more people, about 14%, with too much iron. This is usually seen in older men, but it also affects older women too. Too much iron causes inflammation and leads to a variety of illnesses. Within this group of too much iron, there is 1.25%, or about 4 million Americans, who have a genetic defect called hemochromatosis, which causes iron overload. This happens when the excess iron gets in the organs such as the liver, the heart, the brain, or even the joints, and causes irreparable damage. If not treated, it leads to early death. Just look at this graph. The solid line is a person with normal iron. The lower dashed line is the line for someone with ferritin, which is the measure people use for iron. For ferritin greater than 600. You can see from this group the median age of death is 24 years earlier than someone with normal iron. So note, this is everyone with too much iron, including and excluding the genetic defect people. So this is a serious issue for 45 million Americans, and in particular the 4 million who will get iron overload. That's iron in large quantities in their organs. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying yearly because of too much iron, and yet it's fully treatable. The extent of these issues is not really recognised yet. Now, just 4 years ago, this was the summary of how diagnosis is currently performed as described by Dr. Paul Adams of the Canadian Hemochromatosis Society. Let's listen to him briefly.
Now, the most common way that hemochromatosis is diagnosed in Ontario is the person complains of fatigue, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor orders the ferritin thinking it's going to be low, only to find that it's very high. And then the doctor would usually order the genetic test, the ferritin, and the transferrin saturation, and interpret all of them together.
That's wishful thinking. This is what should be happening, but currently the British Society for Haematology only recommend DNA screening for the strongest form of hemochromatosis called double C282Y and the close family of all those people. So let's listen to Dr. Paul Adams a little bit more to see what he says about the use of the genetics.
The most powerful thing that came out of the discovery of the gene immediately was the ability to diagnose hemochromatosis quickly, particularly within families. The typical hemochromatosis patient, they almost all have exactly the same genetic mutation. And that's not true with most genetic diseases. If you took like cystic fibrosis, there are hundreds of different genetic mutations that are close in the same region, but they're not exactly the same. But in hemochromatosis, most people have exactly the same genetic mutation. So that means when you're developing a genetic test, you only have to zero in on one little spot.
So what is this gene that he was talking about? It's the mutations of the HFE gene. There are 3 different mutations, but only 2 are common. So so for now, we'll just consider the common 2, which is C282Y and H63D. These are always in pairs, so for 2 types there are actually 6 possible combinations, and here they are. But note, for the same combination, there is a range of up to 80 years when someone will overload iron or not. Why is this? Well, the answer is simple. It's caused by more than one factor, not just one gene mutation, as Dr. Paul Adams implied. There is something else going on too. We at CheckIron think it's other mutations of the iron metabolism that either speeds up loading or slows it down. And we've been looking at data from the 175 people who uploaded their data to CheckIron version 1. We discovered that there seems to be a relationship between faster loading and some mutations which cause higher transferrin or slowing down when the person has lower transferrin. Transferrin is a protein which transports the iron between the blood and the organs. Right, I've tried to explain why we're doing CheckIron, and now let's get down to the user guide. So first of all, you need to have got your DNA done from one of the big suppliers, and Ancestry, in our opinion, is the best one because it supports hemochromatosis the best, and 23andMe is the well-known one. So I'll explain. First of all, you send off for your kit, which can cost between 60 and 80 pounds, or about $100 US dollars. Once you get the kit, you then spit in a tube and you post it back to them. You then wait 6 weeks and you get the result posted on the website, and you can see that your data is there. You go to DNA on the menu item and then settings. Note, there is more than one settings. So make sure it's the DNA settings, and then scroll to the bottom and you'll see a download option. Then do the download, or click the download, and you'll actually see it sends you an email. Look at the email and you'll get a link in it and you get the download. So it's a little bit fiddly, but you end up with a file which is about 6 megabytes in size, and it's compressed. But don't decompress it, just leave it as it is and go to checkiron.com and then click check now. Click check now and scroll down a little bit more and click the file, the browse, and it browses your disk for the file. Select the file you just downloaded from your supplier and it'll upload. It then, once it's uploaded, it starts starts analyzing the data. It takes about 2 minutes. It counts down and you get the results. And here are my results, which I've just processed in front of you. Additionally, you can actually look at other people's results in the samples section of the info tab. So if you go to info, which is a group of documents, information about hemochromatosis and our thoughts on it, you'll see in the samples section a number of samples available. Clicking on the first one, which is homozygous C282Y with fast loading, you see the sample data for a person who we predict will load at the age of 37. This person's data has the worst condition being hemochromatosis type 1 and Alzheimer's being far second. So looking at hemochromatosis type 1, we see as a 76.5% chance of loading, and you can also see why that is. Looking at the Alzheimer's section, there is just one minor issue. If you go back to the info document samples tab, we can see other people's data and click the homozygous C282Y for slow loaders, and this person is actually me. What I have is quite a strong effect on my age from hemochromatosis type 1. But if you actually look at my data, that you can actually see that even though I have a BMP2 which increases the loading speed, I additionally have a G277S which decreases the loading speed significantly, and this is what prevented me from loading until my 60s. Going back and looking at the samples again, the next one is for a carrier of H63D. Carriers are a lot harder to deal with because the effect from the HFE gene mutation is much smaller, and therefore you need something else to add in. Now, this can be other diseases. You can see this person has MTHFR as their worst disease, and gluten intolerance is also has a large effect. But the HFE mutation itself should only affect 2% of people. So if we actually look at hemochromatosis type 1 and what is involved here, you'll see that this person has a BMP2 which increases the speed of loading, as well as a high transferrin mutation which also increases loading, and this is what decreases that person's age. So in conclusion, CheckIron version 2 is a lot more functional than our initial version, and we're very excited to be able to do the prediction of age at symptoms. Now, this isn't that accurate at the moment, particularly it's not accurate for carriers, but we think that if we get thousands of people to upload their data to the site and put in their age at symptoms, we'll be able to work out the patterns, which means we can more accurately predict what age they will overload on iron. Now, whether or not we really can do that, we don't know for certain, and it might be that if you have gluten intolerance, for example, or lactose intolerance, that it really depends greatly on what you're eating more than anything else. But we'll find that as we go along. Anyway, please try this version of CheckIron, and further, if you do think it useful, please send it or recommend it to your relatives, because we sincerely believe that prevention of iron overload is truly possible by making the age at symptoms more accurate. And we think thousands of lives, if not just health, can be saved over the years. There are other videos in the series. This is the second series of Iron Can Kill You, and please subscribe to the channel, like this video if you find it useful, and click the notification bell to find out when new videos are appearing. Many thanks.